Good morning. For today, Kobe Bryant's widow awarded $16 million by a jury on Wednesday. The lawsuit was over leaked photos of the helicopter crash site where her husband and daughter died.
The Uvalde School Board votes unanimously to fire Police Chief Pete Arredondo. The embattled police chief didn't show up at Wednesday's meeting.
President Biden announced his student debt relief plan yesterday. We break it down to find out what's inside.
A Russian attack kills 25 civilians on Ukraine's Independence Day. Could it be retaliation for the car bombing in Moscow? We talked to a former CIA official on what the incident means for the Russia-Ukraine war. Good morning. Welcome to NTD. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Good morning, and I'm Evelyn Lee. Today's Thursday, August 25th. Yesterday, a jury awarded late Kobe Bryant's widow $16 million. The fire department allegedly shared photos of human remains at the helicopter crash site where her husband, their 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others were killed in 2020. Here's more.
Vanessa Bryant was present in the LA courthouse when the verdict was read after an 11-day trial. She had sued Los Angeles County, alleging invasion of privacy, accusing members of the sheriff's and fire departments of sharing graphic images of the crash in unofficial settings, including to patrons in a bar. 7 other people died in the crash in Calabasas, California in 2020. Another plaintiff in Bryant's lawsuit, who lost his wife and daughter in the crash, was awarded another $15 million. Vanessa Bryant also filed lawsuits against the helicopter charter company as well as the deceased pilot's estate. The county already agreed to pay $2.5 million to settle a similar case brought by families of others who died in the crash. Kobe Bryant was 41 when he died. The Los Angeles Lakers great and 18-time All-Star won 5 NBA championships and was elected to the Hall of Fame the year he died.
The Uvalde School District's embattled police chief was fired yesterday. The Uvalde School District Board of Trustees voted unanimously to fire Pete Arredondo. He had been on unpaid leave since shortly after the May 24th shooting. The firing follows allegations that he made several critical mistakes during the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School that left 19 students and 2 teachers dead. Arredondo is the first officer dismissed over the hesitant and fumbling law enforcement response to the tragedy. Only one other officer is known to have been placed on leave. That's Uvalde Police Lieutenant Mariano Pargas. He was the city's acting police chief on the day of the massacre. Arredondo has come under the most intense scrutiny of the nearly 400 officers who rushed to the school. He was not in attendance, even though his career was on the line. That's because he's concerned for his safety.
And turning our attention to the flash floods, a flash flood emergency is unleashing life-threatening conditions across parts of Mississippi. One mayor says the rain in his city has far exceeded the levels they saw during Hurricane Katrina.
I haven't seen it come up like this quick.
An emergency evacuation at a nursing home just outside of Jackson, Mississippi, triggered by rapidly rising floodwaters.
The water came up, residents were flooded in.
We got everybody out, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So everybody's safe. We got all the staff and the residents out. We can replace the stuff, but the people are out, so that's a good thing.
Rising waters turning roads into rivers across parts of the state.
These people go to drive through these low-lying areas. It may not be up into a home yet, but the wave that you create, you may have just created tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage to these people's home, needlessly.
Fast-moving floodwaters have destroyed a large chunk of the highway in Newton County, and saturated ground under train tracks giving way, causing cars full of carbon dioxide to roll off the rails and into a 20-foot ditch.
Our cars are damaged, houses are damaged, and everything. We had to pack up, get out the house. The rescue team came and put us on the boat.
Now, emergency officials warned the threat from heavy, relentless rains is far from over.
We've still got a tremendous amount of rain to go. I was talking with the National Weather Service before I came up here this morning, and he said even tomorrow we could have 2 to 4 more inches on top of what we had today.
President Biden announced his student debt relief plan on Wednesday. It will give $10,000 of loan forgiveness to millions of Americans and another $10,000 for those deemed to have a greater financial need. It also includes new measures that will lower the burden of paying back any remaining debt. But not everyone is eligible. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on how it's going to work.
The forgiveness only applies to those with federal student loans. Private student loans will not be forgiven. Individuals making less than $125,000 and families making less than $250,000 a year will be eligible for the $10,000 loan forgiveness. It does not apply to people who have already paid off their student loans or anyone about to take on new student debt. Recipients of Pell Grants can have up to $20,000 forgiven. Pell Grants are special government scholarships for low-income Americans. While Pell Grants don't have to be paid back, recipients usually need to take out additional student loans. Dependent students currently borrowing will be eligible for relief based on their parents' income. Student borrowers at Ohio State University weighed in on Biden's plan.
It's not going to do anything to lighten the load of future students, future generations of college students. I think something that would be more permanent would be permanent freezing or even elimination of interest rates on federal student loans as a sustainable change.
I know it's my responsibility to pay that back, so government assistance would really kind of be nice there because it's daunting when you really think about it.
According to federal data, around 43 million Americans have federal student debt. A third owe less than $10,000 and half owe less than $20,000. The total amount of federal student debt is more than $1.6 trillion. The student loan payment freeze that started in 2020 during the pandemic is being extended until the end of the year. It was set to expire at the end of August. Most looking for debt forgiveness will need to apply for it. Officials say the process will be unveiled in the coming weeks. Biden's plan is likely to face legal challenges. The plan was never passed through Congress. Republican lawmakers have already said they will take it to court. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
The White House estimates the plan will erase the federal student debt of around 20 million people, but with 40-year record-high inflation, tuition fees and the cost of living for students are on the rise.
So how did college costs jump to the astronomical figures of today? And a better question is it still worth it to go to college? And today's Phil Zoe explores this question.
Hannah Maruyama was in the middle of a midterm exam during her freshman year in college when she suddenly had an epiphany.
I was like, why am I here? So I took the paper and I tossed it in the trash and I left and I never came back.
That was around 8 years ago. Today, Maruyama is working in tech, making six figures without a college degree.
I had always suspected that college was not necessary, but then my suspicions were very much confirmed when I received an offer letter that required a 4-year degree in computer science, and I didn't have one.
College tuition has been increasing at nearly 5 times the rate of inflation since the 1970s. That's according to My eLearning World. What used to cost only $3,000 for private college tuition back in 1970 now costs over $50,000 in 2021.
I have worked with teenagers, 17, 18 years old, crying because they are worried about how they're going to pay for college.
Jennifer Letwith is the founder of Scholar Ready, helping high school students win multiple scholarships so they can reduce their tuition costs.
It's a great way for people who don't have much, who aren't born with much, to build a worthwhile life.
So how did college tuition get so expensive in the first place? Stuart Siegel, president of FAFSA Assist, who's helped over 100,000 students apply for financial aid, says there are many reasons.
Well, government got involved and made basically unlimited amount of money available to parents to pay for college. Parents seem to be willing to pay just about any amount to keep their promise to their children. They say, if you do the work, we'll find a way to pay for it.
So is college still worth it? Siegel says that depends on the student.
It's considered an investment, but you have to look at the student and how investable are they? I mean, are they really hungry to get an education? Are they going to work hard in school? Are they going to, network with other students? Are they going to take advantage of everything? Are they going to meet with their professors? Are they going to go to the Career Center? I mean, a lot of students just don't do that. They don't go to the Career Center until 4th year, and these people don't know them.
For those skipping college, Maruyama shares some advice.
I think that what people need to understand is that keeping a flexible mindset where you're willing to learn what's needed instead of picking something out of the blue, like a college degree, just picking a major and then just getting a college degree and then hoping that when you throw it against the wall, it sticks. Instead, you look at what companies need, you go get that, and then you can make good money in the market.
Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
And moving on to some other news, First Lady Jill Biden tested positive for COVID-19 again in an apparent rebound case. She tested negative for the virus over the weekend. Joe Biden first tested positive on August 15th when vacationing in South Carolina. She isolated until she received 2 negative tests and was cleared to meet the president in Delaware on Sunday. The White House says President Biden continues to test negative. He also suffered a rebound case earlier this month after an initial recovery. The First Lady and the president are both twice vaccinated and twice boosted with the Pfizer vaccine. She was prescribed the antiviral drug Paxlovid. Some of those prescribed the drug have experienced a rebound case of the virus a few days after their initial recovery.
And coming up, Daria Dugina's killing brought the war home to Russian President Putin, and Russia is now accusing Ukraine of the attack. What does it mean for the war? And a rocket attack on a Ukrainian train station leaves 22 dead and dozens wounded. The attack comes as Ukraine marks 31 years of independence from Soviet Russia. Learn more after the break here on NTD News.
At The Nation Speaks, we don't just scratch the surface. We want to go wide and deep. Our viewers come away with a much richer understanding of the issues of the day. We really make a big effort to bring on different voices onto the show. We don't just talk to experts and newsmakers, which of course are extremely important, but we also want to hear from the American people. So the people who are impacted by the policies and issues that we're talking about, because what they have to say is just as important to the national conversation.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Got a new house.
I think I finally found a place that I call home.
Welcome back. The bomb that killed Daria Dugina brought the war to Putin's doorstep. Now, Russia accuses Ukraine of being behind the attack, which leaves many wondering what this could mean moving forward. We're bringing in Scott Eulinger for more on this. He's a former CIA station chief. Good morning, Scott. Good to have you.
Good morning.
Well, first, I want to address the missile attack on Ukraine's Independence Day. Could this be a repercussion of the car bombing?
This is certainly true. It could be. The Russians certainly could have used the bombing as a justification for this attack, but the timing on Ukrainian independence is particularly noteworthy. However, I'd like to point out that there are a lot of experts who believe, who basically are suspicious of Russia's immediate accusation of Ukraine being behind this attack on Dugina's daughter. Because the fact remains that the Russian oligarchy is very much split right now between hawks and doves. And there's sort of a campaign of inner terror going on within Russia. I want to point out that in the beginning of the war, there were several oligarchs, lower level people, it is true, who lived abroad who were murdered, including one in Spain and I believe one in Cyprus. They and their entire families were murdered. Now, this could be a coincidence, but it also could be that certain people, especially amongst oligarchs living outside of Russia.
So I hear you just mentioned, sorry, your signal is coming in and out right now, but I hear you mentioned that Russia is definitely blaming Ukraine for it, of course. Who do you think is behind it?
I think it's at this point it really is very difficult to say. However, I think that although the Ukrainians are capable of doing this, I believe we should also not rule out the fact that this could be fratricide going on between members of Putin's inner circle. And this would also reflect just general Russian frustration with the pace of the war. The war has not gone according to schedule. And right now we're looking at basically the third phase of the war. In the second phase, the Russians consolidated a lot of their territory in Lugansk and Donetsk. But in this third phase, the Ukrainians are attempting to take the initiative from the Russians, and I think they're doing a fairly successful job with their attacks on the Crimean Peninsula and elsewhere.
Right, very good point. And I want to stay on the topic because we see how the war is taking a growing toll on Russia, and it's coming into their territory, and now elites don't feel safe anymore in their own city. So could this have an influence on the Kremlin and the war?
I think it can, but the problem is that the Kremlin is basically all in at this point in the Ukraine war. There isn't that much more that can be done as far as the Russian armed forces. Now, there are even hawks within, people who are very much in favor of the war in Ukraine, who advocate the use of things such as nuclear weapons. Now, of course, Putin actually is not going to do that. However, it does show you that there are not only doves who are displeased with Putin's approach to Ukraine, but there are also hawks within Russia who are opposed to, who don't think that basically Putin is doing enough against Ukraine. So he has to navigate between two sides within the oligarchy of Russia who don't think he's doing the right thing. Some believe he's not being firm enough. Some believe he's being too firm. So it just shows you the difficulties that Putin has in managing a difficult war with deteriorating domestic support.
Right. That's interesting to also hear some of the infighting. And I mean, keeping all this in mind, it's been 6 months now. And what do you see happening in the next months?
Unfortunately, I think we're going to see more of the same. This is a war of attrition, a grinding down between forces. Now, the Ukrainians lately have been very good at accelerating the war of attrition. They're trying to wear out Russian forces in the Kherson region and by using attacks into Crimea to try to force a decision. However, I believe that we're looking at the conflict extending at least another year before the possibility of something like a negotiated settlement or such, because Russia and Putin are committed to trying to win this, despite the fact that much of the action on the ground is not going in their favor.
Thank you very much, Scott. We'll have to end it here, but I would love to continue this conversation another time. Scott Eulinger, thank you for your insights today.
Thank you.
A rocket strike on a Ukrainian train station yesterday killed at least 25 people and wounded dozens. The attack comes as the nation marks the anniversary of its independence from Moscow-dominated Soviet rule. Here's NTD's Condemn with more.
An aide to President Zelensky said Russian forces had shelled Chaplin twice.
There was no sound. Nothing at all was heard. Just an explosion is all. Fire, explosion, and fire started.
A boy was killed in the first attack when his house was hit by a missile, and 21 people died later when rockets hit the railway station.
We were not at home, but they heard shots, pops, and then a neighbor called and said that there was an explosion near the house and the house was destroyed. So this is the situation.
Zelensky warned on Tuesday of the risk of repugnant Russian provocations on Independence Day, which by chance also marks 6 months since Russian forces invaded Ukraine. Zelensky addressed the United Nations Security Council in a video call.
Search and rescue operations at the railway station will continue. We will definitely make the occupiers pay for everything they have done. We will, without any doubt, evict the invaders from our land. No trace of this evil will remain in our free Ukraine. Let's make our way to victory. There will be victory.
The Russian Defense Ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Condemn, NTD News.
And over in Japan, the national police chief said today that he will resign to take responsibility for the fatal shooting of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Japan's National Police Agency released a report on how it failed to protect Abe's life on July 8th. You may remember our reporting about his assassination that day during a roadside campaign event. The police report found holes in Abe's police protection that allowed the attacker to shoot him from behind. Police Chief Nakamura announced his intention to step down at a news conference and called for a new system. Japanese media reported that his resignation is expected to be approved at Friday's cabinet meeting. And coming up, the severe drought in Texas is forcing ranchers to cull their herds, but in other parts of the state, the drought has uncovered a little piece of history. We'll tell you more in just a moment on NTD News.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
The lasting beauty of realistic oil painting. Brilliant, expressive, and inspirational. The 6th NTD International Figure Painting Competition. Guided by pure authenticity, beauty, and goodness. Invites you to join us on a journey back to traditional art. The Gold Award is $10,000. For more details, please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Good to have you back. Texas is the top beef producing state in the U.S., and a drought gripping ranchers is forcing them to cull their herds. That trend will likely mean higher prices for consumers.
The Caney Creek Ranch is about halfway between Houston and Dallas, and owner Wesley Radcliffe and his herd are weathering a hot, dry summer. Texas, the nation's top beef-producing state, is in the grips of a drought that's forcing ranchers such as Radcliffe to pick between raising cows or slaughtering them. Radcliffe has already begun to cull, selling 50 animals from his 500-head herd earlier this year.
When the drought first hit, we booked and shipped 50 mama cows. They were older mama cows, and they might have gone and had another baby for us, but rather than wait on them to have another baby, we went on and shipped them to the meat factory, and I call it a meat factory to make it sound good.
Since mid-July, more than 93% of Texas was in drought, ranging from moderate to exceptional drought, according to the United States Drought Monitor. Exceptional drought, or D4, the highest level, is classified by widespread loss of pastures and crops, as well as water shortages in reservoirs, streams, and wells, creating emergencies. As of the middle of August, more than a quarter of Texas was in exceptional drought. And you see that playing out here at the East Texas Livestock Auction in Crockett.
The grass is gone. The cows are beginning to lose weight. The cows are weak because there's no protein. So we're getting rid of a lot of cows.
Paul Craycraft is a co-owner of this auction. He said in normal times, most of the cows bought here are put to pasture, with just a minority going to the slaughterhouse. But the drought changed that.
Normally you'll see maybe 40% of the cows in a sale will be slaughtered, or maybe 30%. As it is, 75% for the last 2 months are going to slaughter. They're not going back home because home has no grass.
More cows sold to slaughter means fewer mature cows birthing calves. Texas accounts for as much as 14% of the U.S. cattle herd, and one way or another, consumers are going to feel the effects of the drought at the butcher shop and the grocery store. David Anderson is an agricultural economist at Texas A&M University.
The pressure will be on for higher prices, higher cattle prices, higher beef prices over the next several years as the effects of this are felt. And so, from a consumer standpoint, we're going to face tighter supplies of beef, and tighter supplies of beef with nothing else going on means higher prices.
Despite the hardship, Wesley Radcliffe keeps in mind this isn't his first drought.
We had a drought in 2011, and people dropped out of the industry. I sold a few cows in 2011, but I didn't sell a lot of them, and I was so glad I didn't, because when the market picked back up, I was able to sell cows that I wouldn't have been able to sell for the price that I was getting for them.
He says he'll again try and buckle down and pray for rain.
And as of mid-August, more than 26% of Texas was at the highest level drought, characterized by widespread loss of pastures and crops, as well as water shortages.
But interestingly, Evelyn, because of this drought, a little piece of history was uncovered. Dinosaur tracks from about 113 million years ago can be seen in a dried-out river in Dinosaur Valley State Park. A park official says these tracks likely came from an Acrocanthosaurus. It weighed 7 tons and reached 15 feet tall. The two-legged carnivore looked similar to the Tyrannosaurus rex, but smaller. The tracks in Dinosaur Valley State Park are expected to be covered up again with river water as local forecasters are calling for rain. Park officials say that's a good thing because the water helps protect the prints from natural weathering and erosion.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword because without the river, we wouldn't be able to see them. We wouldn't know they were there. But once they're exposed, that's when they start to degrade. Just like any.
You know what? Here's an interesting fact. We know that what protects these tracks. Here's how it works. Dinosaurs made the prints as they roamed muddy areas over 100 million years ago. Shortly after formation, they were covered over with sediment due to a flood, and then later turned into limestone and protected the prints. But once they're exposed, the prints will start to degrade.
I see. Interesting. Well, it seems like we learned something about natural history. Hopefully it'll be preserved.
Okay, now back to New York. Evelyn, what's your favorite bakery?
Good question. Probably Dominique Anzel. You know, that one that became super popular for its cronuts.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I definitely think we should try this out. Let's take a look.
Oh my God. It's lovely.
Even during this kind of hot summer day, you can see a line of people around the block waiting to try the Supreme, a cream-filled, circular baked croissant. Since April, the Supreme is limited to one per customer. It usually sells out in less than an hour at Lafayette Grand Cafe and Bakery in New York. The bakery makes a total of 240 Supremes at 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. daily. It's $8.50 for one of the baked treats, and they come in either chocolate or the flavor of the month. For August, it's peaches and cream.
You know, I've seen those before on social media. I definitely know where I'm going to get my breakfast from today.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I don't eat chocolate, but the peaches and cream one sounds like something I would try for sure. And have you ever baked before, Evelyn?
I mean, I do sometimes, but in all honesty, if you find baked goods in my house, it's most likely they're from the store. How about you?
Okay, well, my niece and I made an apricot braid. It's kind of like a coffee cake, but more like bread with filling. And we also made a blueberry mulberry pie with mulberries we foraged from the wild.
Well, that sounds good. Don't forget to bring some next time.
Okay, for the bucket list.
Yes. All right, that's all for today's program. But before you go, we'd love to hear from you. You can share your thoughts and your story at goodmorning@ntd.com. So shoot us an email if you'd like. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.